Hello friends, today we're going to take a look at my very late 2022 reading wrap-up. I want to go over just a few stats and give you my favorites of the year, and then we'll end with a very quick flip through of every book I read or attempted to read last year. So let's jump in. Starting with statistics, last year I set my Goodreads goal at 40 books, which I did meet and surpass. So I read or attempted to read a total of 46 books, but I DNF'd 3 of them, which gave me a total of 43 finished books last year, which is the most books I have ever read in a year. I've got my notes here, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. But that gave me an average of reading 3.6 books per month, which is about average. I usually read between 3 and 4 books a month, so that seems about right. Okay, so we have pages read next. So of those 46 books attempted, so all the 43 books that I finished, plus the pages of the books I DNF'd are included in this stat as well. I read a total of 15,362 pages last year. Breaking that down, I have an average of 1,280 pages read every month, about an average of 77.6 pages per day, and my average book length was 357 pages, and my pages read per hour was 44.9, but do bear in mind that that also included any audiobook that helped me get through pages faster. That made no sense. But the audiobook speed, which is a lot higher than my own normal physical reading speed. My average reading with my eyeball speed is around 30 to 34 pages per hour. So audiobooks do help me go quite a bit faster. Okay, next we have hours read. So when most people give this statistics, what they're usually presenting you are the total amount of audiobook hours they went through, but that's not the hours that I'm about to give you. So the hours that I'm about to give you are the actual hours out of my life that I spent outside of reality inside the pages of a book, which included both reading and listening to audiobooks. So last year I spent a total of 342 hours reading last year. That's on average about 28 and a half hours per month, a little bit more than an hour and a half, so 1.7 hours per day. And on average it took me 7.9 hours to finish a book. And next let's get into kind of the more juicy stuff. So how much money did I spend on my reading habit last year? Combining both all the actual books that I bought and all the bookish subscription services that I used last year, so combining all of that together, I spent a total of $853.92. Which is less than some, but way more than others, I'm sure. And I just want to put that number into perspective for you a little bit. So the amount of money I spent on my hobby last year was not quite, but almost, and I mean almost enough to buy 8 Disney World park tickets. So let's break that $853 down into categories. Up first, we're going to go with just straightforward books bought. How many physical books did I buy last year? And last year I bought 36 books, totaling a number of $384.28. Of those 36 books that I bought last year, I actually read 15 of them, which is not terrible. That's almost half. So that's actually a pretty good number. I'm okay with that. Now we get into the bookish subscription services. So for me last year, that was my library card, because last year before we moved, I had to pay to use my library. And Scribd and Audible. I had Audible for the first time last year. And all three of those together last year, I spent $469.64. So my library card was $50, Scribd was $119.88, and Audible was, of course, the most expensive at $301.56. Overall, using these three services together, I saved $83.25 on audiobooks. So my library, of course, being the biggest money saver, because one, it was the cheapest, it was only $50, and two, it was actually the one that I used the most. Alright, if I did not have any of these subscriptions, and I just bought every book and every audiobook individually, I would have spent a total of $1,196.30. So I would definitely say that having the right subscription service is totally worth the price. And I say right service because last year I made a video talking all about these subscription services and wondering if the money we spend on them is actually worth it. So do we actually get at least what we're putting into it? Do we get that back out? If not, more? Does it save us money or cost us more, essentially? And in that video, I introduced an experiment in which I would try Audible for the very first time. Because, as we all know, Audible is quite expensive. It's one of the most, if not the most, expensive audiobook service out there. So I wanted to see if Audible and its large price tag would be worth it for me in my reading habits on my budget. And so I did. I had Audible for a whole year, and my results of my experiment are in. And no, Audible is not worth the price for me. Had I only bought audiobooks, so without having any subscriptions to Audible, okay, if I did not have an Audible subscription and I only bought books from, say, Chirp Books or Audible exclusives with cash on their own, I would have only spent $259.13. But a year's subscription to Audible cost $301.56. So I basically donated $42.43 to Amazon last year and got nothing in return. So, although I did use that money. So I had about, I think it was 6 credits that rolled over into January. And I made sure that I used all of those credits before my first payment of the year hit at the end of January. So I didn't actually donate money to Amazon. I did get stuff out of it, but not within that year's time that we discussed. So I have since canceled my Audible subscription because it's just, for me right now, it's not worth it. I'm not saying I won't ever have an Audible subscription again, but I don't see it anytime in the near future. So, now, let's move on to some actual book talk with some of my favorites of the year. So I'm going to go over my top 4 books, so my quarterly favorites. My first quarter favorite was The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. And no, it is not objectively a great book, but I just had so much fun with it. I think the best part about it for me was just being able to relive my own biology TA grad school days. So really, totally subjective. Well, all of my ratings and all of my thoughts on books are 100% subjective. I am never ever an objective reviewer, so always keep that in mind. But anyhow, I loved it. I had a lot of fun with it. So, quarter two, my favorite was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this was just a beautiful story with fantastic, truly authentic characters, and hands down, the best audiobook I have ever had the privilege of listening to. And I just want to do like a little side note here and say that 2 out of the 4 top reads of the year, so half of my top reads, were book club picks. So books that I never would have picked up for myself otherwise, those being The Love Hypothesis and Daisy Jones. So if you are interested in the Story Continued book club to find some really great books you may not have picked for yourself, I always have the Discord link in the description. Always is there anytime you want to join us. Alright, third quarter favorite was Damsel by Elana K. Arnold. It is a very slow, meandering, dark, twisted fairy tale with dragons. And it's definitely not, it is not a book for everyone. And I know this, and when you read it, if you read it, you're gonna judge me so very, very hard. But I just loved this book. I loved every single moment of it. The writing was beautiful. It was so lovely, but not in any kind of flowery or lyrical way. I'm not really sure. It was simple in its writing, but it just made it all the more beautiful, I guess. I don't know. I loved it a lot. And lastly, my fourth quarter favorite was Slewfoot by Brom. This one is full of those luscious, dark undertones that I love, and a lot of nature-based earthy witchcraft mixed in with some serious sympathy for the devil. And I loved it. It really surprised me how much I enjoyed this book. So, I will say that the top 2 books that battled it out for the number 1 spot were The Love Hypothesis and Damsel. And Damsel won out. Damsel was definitely my number 1 read of 2022. Alright, that was my 2022 year in review. At the very end, I'm just going to leave you with a very quick flip through of all of my books grouped by ratings. So from my 5-star reads all the way down through my DNFs. So, as always, I thank you so much for being here, and I hope that means I see you soon.